Hello and hello, you incredible friends. This is your pal Edward Zia and Steph Gobraiel. How are you today, Steph Gobraiel?
I'm good. How are you, Ed?
Oh, really good to have you on this beautiful yet rainy Tuesday. And you've got your little one running around, I understand.
Yes, I do. It's that weird time between sort of, school holidays and trying to get started and just trying to, juggle it all. So if she pops in, she's just around.
There we go. There we go. And I'm just so you know, if you just come in, a big thank you. Hit that like, repost, comment. We are streaming through Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter X. And I've actually got my phone in my hand to see your comments in real time. Make sure you connect with Steph. Now, Steph, I thought instead of us talking about planning or writing stuff down, I felt like throwing a wild card in our weekly Zoom. I thought, let's go after the elephant in the room, toxic people. There's been a lot of cool stuff on LinkedIn about toxic people lately. What's your whole take on toxic people, Steph?
Well, the reality is, Ed, they're out there and it's something beyond our control. So I think the way we react and the way we handle it is going to really going to dictate whether we allow toxic people into our lives and whether, we set a boundary with those sort of people as well. So they don't, sorry, my words aren't coming to me today. So we don't lose focus on what's important, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, we don't want to be distracted from what's important. And toxic people will deter us from what's important.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think one maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but one thing I would say about toxic people is I don't think we let them into our lives. They come into our lives. I've had an interesting one actually, just to kick off the discussion. I remember I had this fascinating lady that just kept abusing me over again. And it was funny actually. It was quite a while ago. We started our business networking Zooms, and we had this lady again. Didn't speak English that well. Not the problem at all. And what actually happened was she came to one of our business networking Zooms, and in the Zoom chat, she started being really abusive, telling me to slow down so she can understand me, right? And it got really abusive, so I kicked her out of the Zooms. I had to, right? She's been really abusive. Then what happened was she then logged on with a different account with her mobile phone and started abusing me in the Zoom chat again, all right?
Oh, goodness.
Then I kicked her off that. Then she messaged me on LinkedIn abusing me. Then I blocked her on LinkedIn. Then she found me on Facebook and abused me, and I blocked her there. And then she sent me an email just to abuse me.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, do you think that's toxic behavior, Steph?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's quite extreme toxic behavior, right? Like that's not somewhere in the middle line. I think that's really toxic. And for someone to do that, there's something. I'm not even sure if I should say this, but there's something seriously wrong there. If they're going to those lengths, right? That's extreme. That's very extreme.
I know, but I've also created stuff. You've just come in, like, share, comment, share your toxic stories. And I want to ask you, so I've started with a toxic story. Again, don't give any names so we don't get any lawsuits, but can we get a toxic story from you, Steph? What's one of your favorite toxic stories from last year or even this year that really stood out?
Yeah, so I've been to a networking event quite a few times, and I've had this one person constantly, like whenever I'd see that person,
I shouldn't be laughing. I don't know why I'm laughing. I'm sorry for laughing, but it's kind of funny, but carry on.
And, I'd be all friendly and polite, as I am, Ed, as you know me. And then somehow, somewhere in the conversation, that toxicity starts and then all, that person starts saying, some really, really not nice things that you say to people. And I've never, had an issue with this person.
Can I ask, was it sexual, sexist, racist? What was the sort of undertone of it?
It was more in regards to me and my business. And and every time I see this person, there is some comment there about it, and I'm just like, I kind of get confused because I'm like, we're starting out the conversation really well as to how you're doing, how's things, really polite and friendly. Sorry, one sec, Ed. Ma'am, sit down. Sorry, that's me in mum mode.
Well, I like your mum voice. You use your mum voice all the time. Like,
Oh, I get really mama bear. I can get really, especially if she's doing something dangerous, you'll see a completely different side to me.
Yeah,
But
that's
so
how,
this
that's toxic
person,
mode. You need
sorry?
aggressive mother mode in dealing with toxic people.
Yeah.
Aggressive mum mode.
Yeah, so this person just kept saying, to me, you know, this really, I don't know, just not really not nice things to say to someone, and it was really left field. And I think
So
that's what threw me off.
Were they like putting you down, like through
Mm.
sniping questions, that sort of thing?
Yes. It was one of those, those passive aggressive sort of conversations from their end, and I'm like, well, I don't know why it's come this way, because I've been nothing but supportive and friendly and everything else, and every time I see this person it always comes up, and now I'm just like, I've got to kind of avoid that person, because I don't even know if they know that they're doing it, and I think that's even worse. I mean, maybe the shock on my face kind of gives them a clue that they're doing it, but do you know what I mean? It's like, like I've got a really bad poker face, Ed. So if something startles me or if something shocks me, you see it immediately. And I think that person did see it on my face, that shock of, what are you talking about, or where did this come from?
Yeah.
But I kind of avoid that person now, because I'm like, I'm not going to play nice for the sake of, playing nice. If I can just avoid talking to you, then that's what I'm going to do, because it's now happened 3 to 4 times in a row. And they don't get the hint. So it's just, it's just one of those things, I guess.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I've got I don't have a poker face at all. I do the whole Arab get really aggressive things, and people have seen it. Like, people have watched someone abuse me or give me a hard time, and they've seen my body language turn from nice Ed to someone who's about to beat someone up. And usually people read it off me. So this happens all the time. People will give me a hard time. Then all of a sudden they'll pick up that they've crossed the line and they'll back off on me. They know they'll start to lose. And it's interesting you say that, actually. 2 things I say about dealing with toxic people, and this has been my own viewpoint, is you got to have strong boundaries.
Yeah.
And also you got to return fire too. So if a toxic person does something to you, you have to do something back to them to teach them a lesson. That can be ignoring them. That can be walking off on them. It can be, it can be more pacifistic behavior. But I think with toxic people, if you don't do anything, they don't care. Like, a lot of people say toxic people don't know what they're doing. I disagree with that. I see them more maliciously. I think toxic people know exactly what they're doing, right? In fact, I want to ask your viewpoint on that one, and perhaps we disagree, which is awesome. But I think whenever I talk about toxic people try and defend toxic people. I disagree. I think toxic people know they're being toxic and it's all part of their scam. What do you think, Steph, on that one?
I think some people know it and others don't. But when they see people's reactions, like, my shocked look, or, maybe your change in behavior, then they realize there's something else going on. Like, did I say something to offend them? But some people are so far in their own mind that they don't see what they're doing, and people tend to avoid it rather than call people out on it. And that's why people don't even know sometimes that they are toxic for that reason. And I think that's really interesting, because the way we receive something could be very different to the way that someone's trying to get a message across, right? However, if that consistency in the messaging keeps coming across the same way, with similar words, then it's not the way it's being received, it's what's being said.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, there's 2 sides to this, right? You meet, and I think people are more putting us on. Just to interrupt, we've got Abhijit with us. Abhijit, big welcome. And we've got Popolazzi with us. Welcome. If you just come in, like, share, comment, say hello, tell us your toxic stories, connect with Steph Gobraiel and I. And I think there's 2 sides to this as well, right? Like, I've been toxic many times in my life. I've had toxic behaviors, which I don't like. That's not what I'm talking about. Sometimes you get people that are perpetually offended. Right? I've met people like this. They're angry. They're looking to be offended at something, right? And they'll take one of your words out of context. In other words, they'll accuse you of being toxic, but they're actually the toxic ones, right? The classic projection. they'll take one of your words out of context and twist it and try and throw it back on you. And I've had that experience as well. I've had people say all sorts of stuff on me, right? In fact, I got a funny story for if I can share the story with you, right? Funny one for you. Tragically funny, by the way. I don't laugh at this issue. But what actually happened was we're running one of our business networking meetups, and there was this guy there. He was literally touching up women at our event. It was amazing. It's about crazy, right? Literally touching up. Anyway, so what happened was kicked him out of the event, as you do, right? Kicked him out of the event, as you'd expect. And he started sending me all these abusive messages on LinkedIn and everything. But can I tell you what happened that was very funny at our next event?
Don't tell me he showed up.
He showed up just mouthful of strawberries and cream, acting like everything was fine, right? And I kicked him out. I wouldn't even let him to the event. I actually kicked him out and told him to beat it, right? And he acted all really offended. Everyone applauded it. And guess what then happened a year later in a different city?
Don't tell me he showed up again.
He showed up again, right? He showed up again. And I'm like, you know how you see something, you don't believe it? Your eyes are like, no. You know, like you see a unicorn in the sky and it's like, no, I can't, it's not true, right? It was like that. It was like, anyway, and what he did was though, it took me a while to recognize who he was. And the moment I recognized him, he noticed and he actually left the meetup. He actually went running for it. This is in Melbourne where I spotted him, right? And now in this guy, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's knows exactly what game he's playing at, I reckon. Knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, Ed, if you say something wrong and someone takes it out of context, I try to diffuse the situation by saying, well, actually, I may have said that, but that's not what I meant. What I meant was, so I want to clarify that because, you know, the way we, you know, say a message might be received differently, as I've said. So if someone takes something out of context with me, I turn around and go, okay, can I just clarify? That's not what I meant. This is what I meant. But if they're going to keep going and keep, you know, trying to throw it back in my face like a boomerang, then I'd be like, well, this conversation's over because you're not actually listening to what I'm saying right now, you know. And when people are angry, they don't listen. They sort of tend to shut off. But for me, instead of going around and around and around, and it's happened to me previously where, you know, it's like banging your head on a brick wall. The only person that's going to get hurt by it is you. You're better off just to shut that conversation down and go, okay, well, we're not getting anywhere and we keep saying the same things and you want to take it the way you want to take it, then, you know, I'm calling it quits, you know, so like, this conversation's over and that's it.
Yeah. I think it's really good because I think a common trick of toxic people is they're trying to screw you in conversation. They're basically listening to what you're saying. They're not approaching a conversation in good faith, right? They're not having a good faith discussion. They're deliberately listening to you to find a way that they can somehow distort what you're saying to throw it back on you. And again, you see it a lot on TV and in politics and that, right? And I think it's absolutely crazy. You know, one of my biggest ways of dealing with toxic people, you know what my favorite strategy is?
What's that?
Delete and block. Delete and block. I think it's the best way of doing it.
Yeah. And you know what, Ed, that's the civilized way of doing it. Because when you said to me that, you know, you go all Arab on them and your body language changes and stuff, if I went all Arab on someone, I would not be in business. So that's why I choose a different path, because I would rather stay in business and stay with, you know, the fact that, you know, I love what I do and I'm not going to let someone that's not worth it, you know, undo all the hard work that I've done over the years, you know, just for a rise out of me, right? That's essentially what they want. They want a rise out of you. And it's like, it's just easier to go, you know what, I'm not participating in this conversation anymore. You know, thank you very much. It still shocks me though, Ed, because whenever I go into any conversation with anyone, I go in with the most utmost good intentions. And I think that's what gets me every time, you know, because you don't expect someone just to, you know, flip the switch and, you know, say something horrible or whatever it is, right? And I think that's why I kind of go into this shock mode. And then, as I said, because I don't have the poker face, some people can read that I'm shocked or I'm upset or whatever it is, but that's the world we live in, isn't it? I mean,
It's funny. I agree with you. I've been to like a lot of events, for example. You're there, you're in a good mood, and someone just says something to you that's off the wall. It's like, what the hell? Or they don't say it to you, they say it to someone in front of you, and you're like, where did that come from? What's the matter with you? And I think it's tragically funny. And I got I got heaps of funny toxic people stories. But I remember you had a good. This is quite a few years ago. So, but I remember you told me this funny one that you had this client that hired you and said, you need to increase my sales, but you can't do any work to do it. I remember you telling me this funny contradictory story. This is years ago. And I remember you were in this weird situation where a client was holding you accountable for results, but then they weren't letting you do anything. And I thought, what a toxic way of dealing with poor Steph. What do you think of that one?
And they weren't taking the guidance. That was the other thing. There was a fight at every turn, and I just thought, I can't help someone that doesn't want to be helped, right? There is a saying that I love, that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? And in some ways, humans are the same. You can give them all the right advice, you can guide them and all of that sort of thing, but if they're not going to implement it, then how are you going to expect any change or any results or anything like that? You're not going to be able to. And I learned that as much as you because I always want, if I work with anyone, Ed, as you know, I want them to succeed, right? I want them to get the results.
That's why everyone loves you, Steph, me included. That's why we all love you.
So I have this stubbornness about me where I don't want to give up because I want them to succeed. But then it's this analogy again, Ed, where you're hitting your head against a brick wall because the brick wall is not going to move, right? So at the end of the day, you've got to call it a day and say, this is clearly not working. And if you're going to guide yourself, why am I here? Like, why am I part of this?
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think some people just don't want to help themselves. And this brings me to another story. This didn't happen to me. Now, as you know, I travel a lot and I watch a lot of crap on YouTube. So one of my things is when I'm traveling, I love just watching crap on YouTube. And one of my favorite things is people getting arrested at airports. So, at an airport, someone goes crazy. There's a lot of video footage on YouTube of people going crazy on planes and then getting arrested or doing wrong stuff at the airport. A bit sadistic, but I like it. Anyway, and there's this really good one. So this guy abused one of the ladies at one of the check-in terminals. Terrible thing. And these two cops were called. This is off the cops' body cams, right? Where most of the footage is coming from. And I spoke to this guy, and the guy basically abused this lady at a desk and then went into a nearby airport bar. Anyway, the cops went in there talking to this guy in the airport bar, and he was being very evasive with them. The cops were saying, look, what happened? We'll try and get everything. So the cops were being quite reasonable. And I remember no matter what they said, this guy was just being slippery. He was being lying and manipulative. At one point, there was like a male cop. The male cop goes to the guy, listen, can we just have a quick look at your ID, right? Just so we know who we're talking to. And the guy wouldn't hand over the ID. And I remember the female cop says, I'm done, right? And it was interesting, the snap in the conversation. These two cops went from chatting to this guy to, all right, excuse me, sir, can you put your hands behind your back, right? They went straight into arrest mode, right? Yeah. And I think I kind of liked it because it was a really well-handled interaction. So they tried being nice. They tried doing all the right things. And when the lady called it, I'm done, they just instantly arrested. I think that's why you do it in conversations. You got to try and do the right thing. But the moment they go too far, you got to enter that I'm done mode.
Yes, I agree, Ed. I think everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt, but there's so many times or chances you can give someone that benefit of the doubt until, as you said, you just call it a day and go, right, you're wasting your time and my time if we're not going to, find some sort of middle ground or, in the cop's case, get the right story, just even get his ID. Like, why is he being so difficult? Is he hiding something? Is he, whatever it might be, sort of thing. It's just a waste of time. I can understand why the female cop got, fed up and went, right, that's it, we're done. Let's go. Exactly. That's it.
And it was like a 10-minute interaction. Like they were, and to me it was really good because Toxic guy. He was like drunk, abusing people at the airport, which obviously we condemn on every level. And it's just giving the cops a hard time, right? But not through direct aggression, but being through more manipulative, right? And eventually they just had enough and they just instantly put the cuffs on him. That's it. And what was interesting was when they put the cuffs on him, he started to resist arrest, right? And then, as you know, in America, as you know, cops, the moment you start resisting arrest, that's when it all gets interesting, right? And they sort of like end up pinning him down. Like the guy pinned him down and the girl. That was really cool, actually. Very good footage. I should definitely share that on LinkedIn, right? But to me, it's the ultimate in dealing with toxic people. Now, what I want to do is I want to ask you, Steph, what are some traits? This is more of a some closing questions and thoughts. What are some traits that are quite toxic that we can be mindful for? And when we've got a toxic friend in our lives, how do we deal with those toxic friends? I just want to throw those two difficult questions at you and see what you think.
I think, well, with the second question in regards to toxic friends, I think you need to make a decision as to whether you want people like that in your life. Because at the end of the day, toxic people aren't good for anyone. And if you want that in your life, then it's not going to serve you in any shape or form. So you've got to make that, that hard decision as to whether you want them in your life, whether you're going to put them at a distance, or how much, do you really want them in your life? Is it more of an acquaintance sort of relationship so you don't cut all ties? You've really got to work out how much you want them in your life. And that's for toxic traits. I think, when you're speaking to someone and they make a left field comment, that might be, something about you, but it's really, it could be one of their insecurities. I think that's one of the biggest traits that I've seen with toxic people. And then they deflect in the sense and say, oh, but, then they play it down. Like, oh, it's not like what they're saying isn't a big deal, or what you're doing isn't a big deal. And, it's just all of this.
Or they make out it's a joke. They'll sledge you, right? They'll insult you. Then you react like any normal person going, hey, what's that supposed to mean? Oh, I was just kidding. In fact, can't you take a joke? You suck, Steph. It's sort of like that sort of behavior.
Yeah. But I think, as you said, Ed, you got to call them out on it, because if you don't, some people will just keep going. And that's what I've experienced as well. So just to say, even, oh, what did you mean by that? And then they'll either backtrack or they'll keep going. But it will sow that seed that, they have said something that it's something they shouldn't have said, essentially. But yeah, it's one of those things. We're always going to come across people like that. I think the best thing we can do is, just to work on ourselves, because essentially that's where it comes from. But that's where toxic people, that's where it comes from with toxic people, right? They're reflecting their own insecurities. They're not happy for whatever reason it is, So I think if we work on ourselves, we'll be able to, see who those people are a lot more easier as well. Do you know what I mean, Ed?
I remember a funny one, and you'll appreciate this. So for those around the world, we live in a pretty nice part of town these days, but I used to live in a place called Parramatta. Parramatta's in Western Sydney. Parramatta is actually now really good. But when I lived there, it wasn't so good, right? So it's definitely a beautiful part of town that's really gentrified. So Parramatta 20 years ago was now it's kind of awesome, right? Anyway, and what happened was I used to live in Parramatta during more the transition, right? When it was sort of transitioning from to gentrified and lovely. So great place these days. Anyway, what happened was this guy, this is just when I started taking off on LinkedIn, this guy really trolled me badly the night before on LinkedIn, right? And I was still pretty immature as an influencer, so I took it quite to heart. Anyway, I ended up blocking him. What happened was, as I was walking down the street of Parramatta next day to go to the city to get a train to the city, lo and behold, I see him down the street. And I'm like, hey, you. I basically like sliding back into my federal policing days. I said, oh, hey, you. Wait, like, hey, you, right there. And he saw me, right? And actually ran across the street and ran into an alley. But I actually did a video on it. I thought it was hilarious, right? Because to me, as a keyboard warrior, he was happy to unleash all sorts of crap on me. The moment he saw me calling
sees you face to face.
Yes. That's right. You literally ran across Main Street, Main Street Parramatta. He just ran right across the street and then ran into an alley and disappeared. And I was like, I felt like a kid who discovered the Easter Bunny isn't real. I was really bummed out. I was like, oh, I thought I was going to have a good morning. But my point being, though, every toxic person I've met, they're good at dishing it out, but the moment they get it back, they just fold like a house of cards. What do you think of that one, Steph?
Yes, I agree with that, Ed, because they're not expecting it, right? And a lot of people just let it slide and walk away, but they don't give it back. So I think you're right, by giving it back, you're actually putting them in their place, and I think you're giving them a surprise by trying to put them back in their place. And then it would be interesting to see how they would react, sort of thing. And that's what I want to do in 2024. Anyone that's going to be like that towards me, I will put them back in their place and I will see how it turns out.
Yeah. So if you diss Steph, it's going to be, so what we should do is, what I'm going to do at one of our meetups is I'm going to get someone who I know will attack you to talk to you, and I'll just sit there with my phone on record. Oh, hi, Steph. Meet this person who's totally not toxic, right? and I'll get a cool video of you punching him in the face or pouring a drink over him or something. That'll be awesome.
It will break the internet of all things, right? It will break it. It will go viral.
We'll get 1 million views on LinkedIn and 2 million views on YouTube. It'll be Arab chick punching sexist guy. Here we go. That'll be Arab chick sexist guy.
And I might end up on TV for some interview, or if I don't end up behind bars, you know how it goes, Ed. It can go one way or another. So
Arab chick punching sexist guy at Novotel Darling Harbour. That'll be awesome. We should do that. That'll be really good.
It's not. Yeah. Interesting.
In fact, I'm actually working out who to set up. I'll get that guy from Melbourne to come up. I'd
probably break his arm, Ed, to be honest. Awesome. I'd probably break his arm. So
there we go. So I'll fly him up from Melbourne business class. So I'll make all the money back from the views I get of the viral video. So it'll be fine. There we go. There we go. Yeah, seriously.
But I also think that every woman should know how to defend herself, right, Ed? I think, that's not something we talk about enough. That's not something we, drive home as a society, especially in this day and age. I think every woman and girl should be able to defend themselves, because look, even at a meetup, you would think you are in a safe environment, and look, right? So I think for all women and, girls, there should be, even through school, I reckon there should be some sort of self-defense class. So that way they've got that skill set. So when they go into the world, or even while at school, if someone tries to do something wrong, like, you would appreciate it, Ed, because like me, we both have daughters, and our daughters have to go into this world. And I swear, I promise you, Ed, if anyone laid a hand on my daughter, I will hunt them down like a cave woman, and I will unleash hell on them.
Have you seen Kill Bill? Emma Thurman?
Yes, I have. Yes.
That'll be a revenge film.
Arab style, though, Ed. Arab style.
That's funny. I'm going to be careful. I think we're going to get this live stream terminated if we keep going, but I think the salient point is good. And I think we're saying two things, right? And I've said this before, is strong boundaries. So this is the way I see toxic. I know we all agree on this one, and we'll close on this thought. You got to have strong boundaries, and you got to return fire with toxic people. Do you think that's the ultimate way of dealing with them?
Very good. Summed up perfectly, Ed. Summed up perfectly.
There we go. I've enjoyed this one, ripping into toxic people. And again, if you are watching this live stream, be it recording a live, like, share, comment, tag in a toxic person so they watch this. No, don't tag me. I hate toxic people. But no, Steph, big thank you. And this has been a good, I love this different topic we did. Now, Steph, just before we finish up, tell us, everyone, what you do and how you help them, and we'll finish up on that one.
Yep. So I'm a business manager, essentially a chameleon between a coach and a mentor. And I help small businesses really grow their business through visibility, through doing the different things you need to be doing for your business, which is essentially working on your business. Working in your business is the client work, but on your business is everything else you need to do to build that pipeline, for future clients to be walking through that door or even knowing who you are. And personal goals are just as important in the process. So I take a holistic approach, and I always say it starts with you and it ends with you, especially your business. That's it, Ed.
Said. Friends, connect with Steph, connect with me. Steph, love your work and thank you again. Appreciate you big time.
Thank you, Ed. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.
Awesome. Love your work. Stay awesome, everyone. Like,